Wake Up Pancreas. I'm Alex, along with Danny. Today, we're going to consider our parenting dilemma. Either we go for the G6 Jet. No, I'm just kidding. We're going to go with the G7.
So, thank you, Alex, for the kind introduction that you have provided us. So today we're talking about a parenting dilemma that we're currently going through. So we figured, why not just talk about it with our lovely audience?
Yes.
And see what you guys think about it. So last episode we talked about the different technology that's out there between the Dexcom, which is a continuous glucose monitor, and the Omnipod, which is the insulin pump, but there's no visible catheter on the outside. It just looks like a white pod that sits on our skin. So the dilemma we're dealing with is, do we allow Marcel to decide which new device she wants, or do we decide? And it sounds easier than it is, because the whole point of allowing her to decide is to really let her take control of her disease process and let her have some say in a disease where she has minimal say. And the whole philosophy that a lot of providers have is let them make the choices. Well, if I let Marcel make the choice, Marcel really wants the new Dexcom. So the Dexcom G7 is what it's called. She's currently on the G6. Now the G7's smaller. It doesn't have two pieces. So the current one, the G6, you insert it, you push this button that's really loud, and then you have to put this plastic transmitter on top of it, which is another click. So you're really like pushing in on that catheter. So if you think about like someone put an IV in your arm and then they put pressure on it, that's what it feels like to her to put it on. So she really dislikes it. But the new one, it's all in one piece. So it's just one click and it's done. So she's really excited about that. And it's also smaller. I think last time we said it's almost like 50% smaller. So she really wants that. However, our dilemma is that we really want to get her on the new Omnipod. She's currently on the Omnipod Dash, or what you would call like the Omnipod 4, which is the insulin pump. And the Omnipod 5 just came out. And now the 5 is an artificial pancreas technology. And now we talked about this last episode a little bit, but essentially the Omnipod 5 talks to the Dexcom, and the Dexcom looks at her glucose, her continuous glucose. So is she high? Is she low? And based on that reading, what the Dexcom transmits over to the insulin pump, it'll either turn up her insulin or turn it down based on how her glucose is running. However, the problem we're having is that the new Omnipod only works with the G6, so her current generation glucose monitor. She wants the G7. The G7 does not talk with the Omnipod 5 because while it's supposed to eventually, there isn't even a process out there. They're not even working on it yet. So there's no date in the future that it's even going to come out. And they're both new tech. So we could be waiting years for this to finally happen. So she wants the new Dexcom, but putting her on the Omnipod 5 is important because it'll help us get better control of her glucose so that she's not going up and down, because you would consider her a brittle diabetic, which I honestly don't like that term, but it's someone that really their glucose just all over. It's either really high or really low. So our dilemma is, do we let her decide and put her on the G7 where she really where she'll be happy, but we limit ourselves from being able to get that artificial pancreas technology because it's not integrated yet? Or do we decide what's better for her and choose the new pod, which will give us that technology, but she still has to wear the old Dexcom that she's not happy with? So it's really finding that balance. I would say a couple weeks ago, I had a boss of mine say to me, when I told her my plan for some of my employees, she said to me, well, sometimes you have to make the decision for the employee because they don't necessarily know what's best for them sometimes. So Alex, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that that concept applies for Marcel, and what do you think is best?
I can tell you 100% that if Marcel wasn't 13 years old, then yes, she would have a say. But in reality, because she's 5 years old, I think she has almost an illusion of what is her choice. We can tell her, hey, there's a possibility you're going to get a G7, but in the long run, most likely we're going to make the best choice for her. So I'm definitely leaning more towards the Omnipod 5, just because there's more connectivity, there's just more usage overall. And also, when you think about how we put these things in, think about taking some duct tape, and then that duct tape, go ahead and put it on your skin, right? And then go ahead and get a needle and poke yourself with that needle, right? And afterwards, let's say, let's wait 3 days. And after those 3 days, go ahead and try to rip the duct tape out of your skin without causing any pain to your skin. And that's going to give you kind of a fair assessment of what she goes through on a, say, daily basis.
Well, every 3 days for the pump, and then every 10 for the Dexcom. But depending on where they fall, sometimes the Dexcom doesn't last as long as it's supposed to. So she's getting them constantly, and it's leaving residue on her skin. But yeah, it's not a comfortable position for her at all. So while I would love to give her that autonomy to make that decision, to feel like she has say, I do think that the Omnipod is probably the better choice as well. Yes. Because her glucose being in control is the most essential thing in order to prevent complications in the long run. However, on the other hand, hence the dilemma, yes, she is 5, so it's not going to happen yet. But if she were 13, constantly making those choices for her, going against what she wants, a lot of type 1 diabetic kids rebel. Yes. And they stop checking their blood sugars. They stop wearing their pumps. They stop changing them. And we don't want that to happen. So it's really trying to, I guess, find that balance. So my question for you, Alex, how do we sell it to her to make her want the Omnipod 5 over the Dexcom? Because we have to make her...
We're going to give her a cake at the same time, saying, you pick this, you get a cake. That's how we're going to end up doing it.
Because we have to make her think it's her idea and her plan, or she's going to fight us the whole time saying, I really wanted this. And every time we put the Dexcom on her, she'll say, you didn't let me get the one I wanted.
Correct. I think if she'd be able to express herself fully in understanding why we're choosing this, you know what I mean, and why she wants the G7, yes, the G7 is smaller. But at the same time, I don't think it's going to take away the same pain of going in and then taking it out. So it should be almost the same.
It should be actually, I haven't told her this, and maybe this will be the selling point, but then she'll be scared in the long run, is that they made the adhesive better so it sticks longer.
Oh, jeez.
Which, in my mind, I'm like, why would you do that? But I do know occasionally, if she's sweating or swimming, the edges will roll up. So that's good for that, but not necessarily our everyday wear.
Yes. So if she's definitely doing a lot of sports, then yes, we want something to stay there longer. At the same time, we got to consider that the fact it's coming off. So once again, that dilemma of the duct tape coming off, it's not quite the same as terrible as it making sound, but it does take a lot of time to peel it off slowly. It's not like I'm just ripping it off like a Band-Aid, but if we take our time with it, definitely do.
She talks us through it. She's like, you have to start from the other side, away from the catheter. Nope, the wrong side, Mom. And then you'll see her breathe. She's like, I can do this. So she has great breathing techniques, and I am so proud of her for being able to do that. But okay, so we say together, I think we can say Omnipod 5.
Omnipod 5 definitely is the
and
route
sell
we're
it
going.
to her with cake.
Cake. Definitely sell it with cake and ice cream, and obviously we're going to have to end up treating her for that.
Obviously. What do you think? So how... wording wise, so give her cake and then say that Omnipod 5 is better because
not at all.
It looks the same.
Here's a cake and here's your Omnipod 5. Congratulations.
The other one is slightly delayed. Once they talk to each other, we can switch you over. I think we're going to have to do some explaining, and it's most likely going to be on the fly and just answering her questions.
Yes, definitely just answer her questions. Like we said before, she will have full autonomy. This is basically her entire life to pick. But for right now, since we are the pancreas, we're trying to pick the best choice for her.
Absolutely. All right. So that's it for us. Another episode of Wake Up Pancreas.
Wake Up Pancreas.